Hello. Today I will give a short presentation on the article Grades, When, Why, What, Impact, and How by Ken O'Connor, and how it relates to both current ministry policy and my own personal teaching. So who is Ken O'Connor? He is an educational consultant known as the Grade Doctor, who specializes in the communication of student achievement, specifically grading and reporting. He frequently works with schools and school boards to improve the way in which students are graded. He has also developed guidelines for how to effectively grade and is generally acknowledged as a leading expert on how to accurately and fairly grade and report students. Ken begins his article by providing a short history of grading. He talks about grading prior to the 20th century, where schools would often grade in a narrative format, listing skills and qualities and flaws. He then talks about how grading trends shifted from narrative to percentage grades and then to letter grades, but all had their flaws, as percentage grades were too unreliable and letter and narrative grades were too subjective. This in turn led to many schools adopting a variety of grading techniques by the 1950s. Since then, the Ministry of Education has decided to centralize the way in which grading is reported, with grades 1 to 6 receiving letter grades and 7 to 12 receiving percentage grades. At this point in the article, O'Connor examines the purpose of grades, and he identifies the three main purposes of grading as stated by Trumbull: to give feedback, to motivate, and to sort students. O'Connor states that clarity of purpose is critical to everything we do. It is our compass and provides us with a sense of direction, especially when there are questions about how we should proceed. He then criticizes Trumbull's list as he feels that grades do not serve all purposes equally. He then goes on to say that he agrees with, and assumes that the ministry would agree with as well, the idea put forth by Brookhart, Bailey, and McTeague, which state that the primary purpose of grading is to communicate with parents, students, and administrators the student's achievement of learning goals. O'Connor then talks briefly about the impact of grades, namely that while they can serve to motivate students, they can also alienate some students and cause them to have a reduced interest in learning. O'Connor then puts forth this very cogent statement: grades have contributed to an environment that maximizes extrinsic motivation, but most schools now say that they are trying to develop students into lifelong learners, a goal that is not achieved through extrinsic motivation. The remainder of the article focuses on how grades are determined. O'Connor talks about how reference points are commonly used, such as in standardized testing, in which students are compared to each other. He also talks in detail about how we have come to understand that there are two main types of assessment: summative assessment and formative assessment. He states that when correctly implemented, formative assessment results in dramatic improvement of student achievement. He then briefly talks about the importance of quality evidence-based assessment, the importance of relevant learning goal-based bases for grades, and the importance of taking the median grade into account, as it can be a more useful measure of achievement than the mean. O'Connor ends the article by quoting Brookhart, who states that in a perfect world, there would be no grades. O'Connor agrees with this statement, but accepts that due to policies, there are going to be grades for the foreseeable future. There are many connections between this article and the Growing Success document. Indeed, it appears as though Mr. O'Connor had a hand in writing the document. In the assessment section of the document, it goes into detail about the need for summative and formative assessment, stating that it is important for students to take responsibility for their own learning through self-assessment. Both the Growing Success document and O'Connor's article state that grading based on achievement of learning goals is needed, and the document goes further in stating that students also need to be presented with success criteria in order to maximize their potential learning. In the evaluation section of the document, it is stated that the purpose of assessment and evaluation is to improve student learning. O'Connor echoes this idea, saying that the goal should be student achievement, not sorting. Further along in the evaluation section, it is stated that all grading must be evidence-based in order to avoid subjective grading, which is also stated by O'Connor. I personally feel that this article has resonated with my personal teaching style. I've long maintained that the focus and purpose of school should not be to achieve the highest possible grades, but to learn as much as possible. Everything else is secondary and should support that goal. I consider myself a lifelong learner, and I am always curious and motivated to learn as much as I can about everything. I suppose you could say I have a high level of intrinsic motivation to learn. That being said, I never really excelled in school, as I was not particularly motivated by the prospect of good grades. In my experiences teaching, tutoring, and as a teaching assistant, I've found that there are many students out there that are similar to me, and that they want to learn for the sake of learning and self-enrichment, not so that they can achieve a grade. I enjoyed that O'Connor feels similarly to me in this assessment, in that the assessment of learning should only have the end goal of improving the student, not of sorting them. I will continue to try and practice what I believe when I teach, namely that I as a teacher should be there to guide and encourage and foster a sense of wonder amongst my students, to make them want to learn in order to better themselves. Reading this article has helped to validate the way I feel about teaching and assessment, and to encourage me to continue trying to improve as an educator. Thank you.